Thank you, Jeremy. First, let me say I hope everybody's safe and healthy and talked. And it's been a very, very interesting month or so here. I do think we're seeing some movement, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. But most importantly, everybody stay healthy. We had 11 spring graduates. That's 20 guys that have gotten University of North Carolina degrees in the 2019 class. So good for them. We tried as much as we could to let them still celebrate their graduation because it is different. They can't be on the field and can't be in the cap and gown like they normally would be. But we constantly talk to them about it being a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. So this will help them moving forward. But very, very proud of those guys. Kevin talked to us probably 2 weeks ago, our chancellor, Kevin Gustowitz, and he made a statement that's really resonated with me. It's the reimagined new normal. And I think that's what we're doing. Things will not be the same. And we had a staff meeting this morning, and in talking to our staff, we're still staying with the same plan we had when I talked to you before. Understanding we haven't been told anything for sure, but our plan is still to go back to work middle of June as a staff until we're told differently. Our plan is that the players would come back either the 1st of July or middle of July and have either a month or 4 weeks to prepare for the opening of spring practice, opening of fall practice August 1st, and we would still play our games and play regular season. Now, that again, I haven't been told that, but I haven't been told that that's not going to happen, and that was what we talked about initially. So what we want to do is be prepared for the earliest, and that is the earliest any of this can happen. Be prepared for the earliest because it's easy to move back. It's really tough to move forward. So if they move the season back, if different things happen, then we'll be prepared for that rather easily. So things sound like they're happening across the country with the possibility of people are going to hire cleaning services, and they're going to clean the building, and they're going to clean facilities, and they're going to clean your practice areas every day. And that's cool. People are talking about apps that you can take temperatures, and you can do that constantly throughout the day. The question will be when we come back, will we have 10 working out in the weight room at a time or 50 or less? What will those numbers be like? And we'll keep social distancing. And I'm a hugger and a high fiver, and that's going to have to change. I mean, that's just who I am. So I'm really going to have to work at. I can't imagine our first team meeting with everybody back, and everybody has to stay 6 feet apart. But that's things have changed, and we're going to have to do that for everybody's health. And then, do you have different types of practices? Do you have different numbers at different times? Do you have a staff meeting in the Swofford team meeting auditorium to spread people out further? Do you have to meet with your first 2 groups and not your third group at the same time and then have 2 different meetings? Do you have to have 2 team meetings, a defensive team meeting and an offensive team meeting? What will training table look like? Will we have carry out more than people sitting together? So all of these things, will there be dots to separate you in the elevators where you can only have 4 on the elevator at a time, but you have to stand on your dot so you can stay separated. All of these things are things that we all have to look at. And in our staff meeting this morning with the coaches, I told them, you need to, you've settled into a routine now over a month with your family at home, and it's been different. And now you're going to come back out of that and go back to work at some point. So you need to start looking at what reentry would be like with your family. Do you need to separate from them some now? Do you need to go in your office for a while and sit and talk? And the other part of that is what will our plan be moving forward when we go back to work? I ask each department head as such, recruiting and medical staff and strength staff and offense, defense, special teams. Submit a plan for what you're wanting to do when we get back to work, if that is June 15th. So all of those things are things now that will happen that are different again. So it's like we're in a constant mode of sudden change. And there's a lot of unknowns out there that we've still got to continue to work toward. The coaches have taken a great advantage of their meetings with the players. Probably met with them more now than we would have if they were on campus, because our coaches would have been out recruiting the last 15 days or so. We did what we call virtual recruiting, where obviously the guys call certain coaches every day, and we've had 160 prospects pop up that we're evaluating right now that we got just over the phone with the high school coaches. Our high school clinics have been unbelievable. They've been so positive. We've always had over 100 for every position, and up to nearly 1,000. So the response to our clinic has been very, very good. Tommy Thigpen will be the clinic speaker this Wednesday. We've really looked at our guys for mental health. There's a certain concern of depression in people's lives right now because it's so different. And in this age group, you're really concerned about depression, anxiety attacks, and suicide. So we're constantly we're in constant contact, over communicating with our team, and at the same time, if you saw one drop in his grades, we're aggressively attacking it to talk to the family and talk to him and see what's wrong and see if he just couldn't handle the online stuff. But our grades were really, really good. Our coaches have been creative with some of their meetings. We've got, for instance, John Gordon, the national motivational speaker, speaking to our team this Wednesday, and we're all very excited about that. The coaches have had Trey Boston already come in and talk to our defense. Wade Phillips is talking to our defense this week. I can't wait to hear Wade. It's exciting for our team. Andrew Whitworth, that's a great player for the Rams, an offensive lineman, is speaking to our offense. He played for Stacy. My brother Watson speaking to the offense. Colt McCoy speaking to the offense and the quarterback. So our coaches are trying to make sure that they keep some excitement and some variety in their speakers to make sure that the guys feel good about it moving forward. But we believe that we've really benefited from only 2 staff changes. The continuity with our staff, the continuity with high school coaches in their recruiting areas has been very, very valuable during this time of pandemic. And it'd be really, really difficult on a new staff who had not recruited this area before. That would be tough. People have asked, we've recruited so well, do they think it's because the pandemic helped us? Because we've got a lot of guys close to home. 13 of our 14 are commitments are close to home. I don't think so. I think it's been about 50-50 with the pandemic for us, because most of the guys that we've committed, or all of them really, had already been on campus. We had a relationship with them. We had been recruiting them for a year. So I feel like we would have gotten them all anyway. We have lost a few that had been to other universities to visit and hadn't been on our campus yet, that couldn't wait long enough. So it's probably been 50-50, but it hasn't helped us in my estimation moving forward. A lot of talk right now, and I've got 2 other things I'll touch and then open it up for questions. A lot of talk right now about name, image, and likeness. Jim Harbaugh threw out a letter the other day saying that he thinks that all the players should be able to go to the NFL when they want to. The name, image, is concerning the coaches, not because they want players to gain from it, but because of the unknowns. There are no guidelines right now, and coaches live with guidelines, and that's very, very important to us. So there's every coach that I know of wants to monitor the scholarship. We did that a few years back with the cost of attendance. That helped the guys so much, and helped the student athletes across the board so much. So we want to continue to do that, but we also would like to have a better branding system in place for all the players. The backup right guard, why shouldn't we help him brand himself to get ready for life after football if he's not going to start for us? And if he's not going to be an NFL player, he still needs to be in a position to help himself and market himself when he gets out. So we're looking at but even before name, image, and likeness goes any further, we're looking at a better way to brand and help brand all of our players. Secondly, I've thought about it a lot, and the Jim Harbaugh thought to me is something that we should really look at as coaches, because it gives players choices. And if a player needs money, if that's a decision he's going to make, to go to college based on name, image, and likeness, where he can make more money instead of where he wants to go to school, why don't we give him the choice to go to the NFL if he's ready to go and if the NFL wants him to go? Basketball's done it for years. People would say, well, these guys aren't ready. Well, maybe Herschel Walker was ready. Maybe some of these guys were ready. And our system kept them from having that opportunity. So that's something that I definitely think that we should look at moving forward. And then lastly, the one-year transfer rule. Coaches in general don't want guys coming in for 1 year and leaving, and some coaches have done that with jobs. So I understand why people think if it's okay for the coaches to leave in a year, why can't the players leave in a year? I think the coaches understand that, but again, the coaches would like guidelines. Should a young man stay for a full year in residence before he looks? Maybe he was homesick. Maybe he didn't really get to know the people there. So should he stay for a year in residence before he leaves? That's something to consider, because this has been moved back till January. When is the last time a young man should be able to leave? Should your quarterback be able to leave in August and go to a competitor school open up against you? Those are some of the concerns that coaches have, that once again, they feel like that 1 year transfer is probably coming, but let's put some guidelines on it to make sure that it's best for everybody. Jeremy, anything that I missed?
I don't think so. I think everybody's probably good, right? Well, we got a couple questions for those that joined late. If you have a question, go ahead and open up your participant window and raise your hand, and I'll move through these as you guys ask. So we'll start off with Bill Bender here. I'm trying to unmute you, Bill.
I got it. Am I good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Good afternoon. I guess you mentioned the virtual recruiting, and for a coach like you that has evolved over the years through that, what's been the biggest benefit of that virtual recruiting for you? I know that probably involves talking to a lot of guys in different ways.
Bill, the players have obviously been home more. The recruits, their parents have been home more. So it's been easy to get a hold of them for one thing. They can call you, they can text you. So I'm probably having more conversation with parents and recruits than I normally would have when they were coming to campus, because I'd see them. And now that I'm not seeing them, I'm on the phone a lot more with them, whether it's texting or receiving their calls. I do think, though, and I love being around the recruits. I love seeing them in my office. I like having the one-on-one conversation with them. So I don't like this near as much as the way it was before, obviously. And Bill, as soon as the NCAA will let us, we want to get guys back on campus. Now, we had a big barbecue planned for the end of July with a whole bunch of recruits. That may change. When they allow recruits to come back on campus, probably they'll be coming as individual families in smaller groups of 10 or less, and we'll probably be showing them around ourselves.
Anything to follow up with, Bill?
Yeah, just one quick follow-up, Mac. Commercial and players coming straight, and Jim Harbaugh's proposal. Wouldn't it be a concern, though, that, in your experience as a coach, how many high school players mentally, physically, emotionally are truly ready to go to the NFL out of high school? Wouldn't that be not a high number in your estimation, or a higher number than I'm guessing?
Bill, I would think it wouldn't be a high number, but who are we to keep that one? And I throw out the name Herschel Walker. One of the guys like that, Ricky Williams. If there are any of those guys that can make multi-millions of dollars, either out of high school or after their second year more than their third year. There's some guys out there right now that are sophomores that would have probably gone to the NFL this year if that rule was more lenient for them. So I'm not saying that it forces them. The NFL would be making that decision anyway if they didn't think they were ready. I'm just saying that if there is a young man out there that is a freakish type player, then I think we should give him the same opportunities that we've given basketball, and let him look at it. I think Jim has a point.
Move to Andrew Jones. Hold on a second, Andrew. Andrew, you're still on mute for whatever reason.
There you go, Andrew.
Hey, it's working. My staff calls me Captain Technology for a reason. All right. As we continue to learn more about the virus, have you become increasingly optimistic that as close to normal is actually possible when you get to August? And are you hearing more optimistic presentations of options come August and September?
Andrew, the virus is awful. It's still killing people at a very high rate, and I have to be careful not watching it because it's depressing. And you sit there every day and you think these are not numbers, these are not digits, these are family members, these are people, these are friends. So I do think we have to be cautious that we don't get hard to it because we're so tired of being in and just say everything's okay, because it's not. And then Sally and I have really been careful with our social distancing. I mean, when we go out, if we're supposed to wear a mask, we wear one. I go exercise every day, and I haven't worn a mask there because I'm out by myself walking and don't see the need. If I'm going to get gas, I get a rubber glove on, and I mean, I'm trying to do everything right, not to be infected, but also not to infect someone else. And I know that Kevin and Bubba, Rick Steinbacher, they're working really, really hard to make sure that we would not have kids or coaches back on campus but before everything is safe and clean. Even there's some thought that we could have gone back June 1st, but the cleaning company is going to start June 1st. I wanted to make sure that, that they've got 15 days to learn how to clean the building and keep everything exactly where it needs to be before we would even consider our coaches coming back. And then you take a coach like Javon DeWitt that has just got through with a bout with cancer, and he's got an underlying medical condition. So I'm not sure how we will handle Javon. We want him to be comfortable and safe. And so we've got to look at all of those things coming back. I don't think that short term that will be normal. I do think that classes will be smaller. I do think there will be more online classes. I do think that we're all going to have to look at what social distancing means in football. I hear there may be some different things. I saw the Miami Dolphins said the other day they may have 15,000 people in their first game. So there's going to be a lot of changes, and we're going to have to adjust to that to have football and make sure it's safe. But I don't think it's going to be normal.
Anything to follow up with, Andrew?
Yeah, just the chatter though, has that changed the conversations? I know when we had you about 5 weeks ago, there was everything was unknown, but have things become a little bit more defined as we continue to learn more about this and ideas are kind of vetted a little bit more?
Yes, what I've learned is that I'm a football coach. I'm not an expert on disease control. I'm not running our country. I'm not a governor. I'm glad I'm not having to make those decisions. They're very difficult decisions, obviously. So what I've learned is that I stay in my lane, and my lane is to get our guys ready until I'm told differently for that June 15th date and that July 1st date. And that would give us a month to prepare for the physical part of it, which Brian Hess is doing a good job. But he said the other day, there is no way that the kids at home can be as strong or eat as well as they would if they were here. So there's no question about that. So what I've tried to do, Andrew, is stay out of all of the speculation and just plan on what I've been told a long time ago might be the truth. And it does sound like that the NFL said they're going to play football in the fall. There is talk about baseball and basketball and all of the sports starting maybe without fans even. possibly this summer. So there is chatter out there for all of us. I felt a little buzz of excitement this morning with our staff for the first time because it seems like that people are planning on us having a football season. And that was unsure. And here you were trying to work on game plans against Central Florida and Auburn when you didn't even know if you were going to be playing them. So I did feel a little buzz this morning, just in our Zoom staff meeting about, hey, this may be getting closer here. We better get to work.
Going to Andrea Adelson. How you doing, Andrea?
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. Real appreciate it.
Hey, Andrea.
Mac, has there been discussion either with Bubba or the other ACC coaches or ACC staff about what testing protocols might look like in terms of how you would test players, how often, and what would happen in the case if there was a positive test that came back?
Andrea, to my knowledge, there has not been. There has not been with me. And I don't think, I think they've had all those discussions. We're really lucky here that Chancellor Gustowitz and Bubba have access to top medical people in the world. So they're constantly talking to them about all of these things. And they told us that they would update us probably the end of May or the first week in June about the findings and where we are and what they feel like we're going to be doing moving forward. So I've heard, but as coaches, that hasn't gotten to us yet. I think that's the university presidents and chancellors and athletic directors and medical staffs and teams and disease control talking about, all right, if we're going to have school and people are saying we're going to have students on campus, if we're going to have football, what does that mean? Because it's easy to say we're going to have it, and then it becomes reality when we think about what differences are going to happen. Are we going to test them before every practice? Are we going to make sure that we know what the temperature is? And if he's got a little bit of a fever, how many degrees does his fever have to be, or his temperature have to be off before he misses practice or before he misses class? I think all of that's still out there, Andrea, and that's why I think the next month and a half here before people are considering bringing players back is really, really important for us to work through those timelines and make sure that we get answers. I can't bring our coaches back to campus without knowing that they're safe. I can't possibly bring a recruit and his family on our campus without explaining to those parents that this is as safe as you can be. Here's how clean we are. When you go in a grocery store and everybody's got a mask and they've got you going down one lane and coming back the other, and they're spraying down the carts when you walk in, and they're letting you wash your hands out front, at least you know they're really, really trying to be clean. And I want everybody that comes in our football facility to feel very, very comfortable because it is different out there. It's new. And even myself, I look very closely when I go into a place to see if it's clean or not, and people are taking care of each other.
Anything to follow up with, Andrea?
Yeah, really quickly, Mac, there's been some discussion among coaches, at least publicly the last few weeks, about the potential for there maybe to be a more regionalized playing of football, where if some states say, well, sorry, our state can't play, and that affects a football team that can't play, it might affect conferences. Have you thought much about the potential for some teams not being able to play this year?
Andrea, I really have not. I've heard it. And again, I'm staying in my lane. That's for commissioners. That's for presidents of those universities to decide. That would be for Bubba to rearrange our schedule if that happened. And I would hate it for those coaches. I would hate it for those kids. But I feel like that we have every intention of playing. So I'm more concerned about us right now than the others.
All right, moving on to Greg Barnes. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, to follow up on Andrea's comment there, talking of speculation, depending on which commissioner across the country you listen to, they all have different ideas of how this is going to play out. Do you think we're at a point where we need kind of a central head, kind of a commissioner nationwide to address some of these issues, so we don't have some conferences trying to start early while, maybe the Big Ten, because they've got Rutgers, for example, has to delay?
Greg, I've always thought that we should have one commissioner for all the commissioners. And I think it would be really, really good, and maybe put the NCAA under that group too, because even one of the concerns is that we've gotten a lot of different interpretations with all the changes the NCAA's had to make the last month and a half. And some of those interps come out on Friday afternoon. I'm trying to run staff members down Friday night, Saturday morning and say, don't do this. They just changed this rule. So I think it would be a great idea if we had a, quote, commissioner for college football that met with all the commissioners, would have meetings with all the athletic directors and include the NCAA. And compliance would be in that group as well.
To follow up with Greg?
Yeah, with Commissioner Swafford, do you feel like you and the other coaches have been able to express concerns and ask questions, and that communication line's been pretty solid?
Yes, we met with John for an hour last week, and the head coaches in the ACC have worked really, really well together. Dave Clawson's been chairing those meetings because it's his turn, and he's done a really good job. We've got David Cutcliffe and Bronco Mendenhall are on the board of the American Football Coaches Association, so they talk to Todd Berry a lot. So I feel like that we've gotten a tremendous amount done. And that's hard when you get 14 guys that all have opinions and all run their own meetings on the same Zoom meeting. It's hard to get everybody on the same page. But I'm really, really proud of the ACC coaches that they're working hard together. And John has been a big part of that.
Moving to Dennis Dowd. Dennis, go ahead.
Okay. Let me hit the video. Mac, I think the central question here is, at this point in your career with your level of accomplishment, what are you doing pumping your own gas? I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. You mentioned the virtual recruiting. How odd is it? Are we at a point now where, coaches will be getting, signing guys that none of the staff have met personally, and evaluated on film, certainly, but I mean, is that where we are? Is that possible?
I don't think so, Dennis. I think, though, we will have more meetings like people walking through grocery stores and such. You'll be 6 feet apart. You won't be hugging them. You won't be shaking their hands. And I do see that going forward. When we get a vaccine, and I'm sure we will, because there's brilliant people working on it, and we all feel safer. When is the next pandemic? What's the next virus that hits us, and will we be ready for it? But I think our children and our grandchildren's lives are going to be different moving forward than ours has been to this point. And I think recruiting will be different, and people will just understand. I was thinking when we can get people back on campus. I was in my office yesterday walking around seeing if I had 6 people in there, how would they sit? And what does that mean? I'd have never thought about that before. And this all happened so fast walking through. We've got some, like the defensive meeting room I went in yesterday, and I haven't been over there very much. There's still books that are open because coaches were told to leave or they were on spring break and they came back and couldn't get in to get their stuff. So this has all happened so fast for us that the people that have been the most creative, the people that have been the most positive, and the people that have been able to work through this are going to be the ones that come out on the other side better. But I do think we'll do more online stuff. I do think we'll probably be showing prospects a tour of your facilities before they ever come to see if they want to come. And we weren't doing that before. But I do think the NCAA has done a good job of looking at a lot of different changes in the rules. They're probably going to have to look at more, because should we be Zooming more with kids? The more we can communicate with kids and families, the better they know us, the better we know them. And if travel's going to change, then we're going to have more communication online, but before they can even decide whether they want to come or not. So I do think that there'll be a lot of changes coming up. There's one rule that I didn't like, that Coach Hess, our strength coach, can demonstrate for our players, but we can't watch them work out. And the NCAA said that would mean that they would feel like they had to be there, and these are voluntary workouts. Well, we lost a player, because he was working out on his own and maybe didn't stretch as well. So I wish that we could watch them work out. They don't have to let us. It's still voluntary, but it seems better to me that if a trainer is watching the kids work out, he can say, slow down, or if they can stretch and we can watch them stretch with our strength staff, then they're more ready to go.
And then real quick on the one-time transfer issue, I know it's been pushed back, but I keep coming back to it was 2 years ago or something. Nick Saban, when this first came up, said, am I going to have to change the way I coach? And that's just rung with me for 2 years. I've been asking coaches about that. Have you considered that, just to keep guys in the fold? I don't know what a word is for it, but
yeah,
what have you thought of that?
It's a good point. We one of our staff members asked me last year, how can we coach and not have guys leave? And it's very difficult when you're the new coach and someone else recruited all the players. What I've told them is recruit players that fit your school, and then show dignity by the way you coach them. We're not going to cuss hard on them, and we're going to continue to do that. But if you get guys that want to come to your school, that's why we recruit close to home. If you get guys that want to get a degree from your school because they're there for academic reasons as well, they're a lot less likely to jump in the transfer portal. The other thing we're seeing, a lot of the guys that have gone in the portal the last 2 years since I've been back haven't gotten a better deal. So I think we'll see fewer guys jumping in that transfer portal. The concern I would have is tampering, and that guys would not be jumping in the portal, especially for a 1 year transfer, automatic ability to play. He would not be jumping in there unless some coach at some university had told him, we're going to take you. And that's where it gets a little dicey.
Great.
Because it's very hard to track.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Go to Isaac. Isaac, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, as we continue to move more towards the name, image, and likeness, will you be making plans just specifically within the football department on how to prepare for, how to handle that with the players? Or will you be coordinating more with Bubba and the other coaches to figure out more of an athletics department-wide approach to it?
Isaac, I think both. Bubba has talked to each of the coaches. Bubba came in even last fall, I think, and talked to our team and told them there's so many questions about what does it really mean. There's a name, but there's no guidelines. It's just thrown out there. So I had prospects' dads call me and said, what does this mean for my son? I said, I have no idea. And that's what I hate about it. I hate that it's a runaway train right now with no guidelines. If we're going to throw something out there, let's figure out what it is before we throw it out there, because it's unfair to coaches and athletic directors and presidents and chancellors and really kids and recruits. Even high school coaches are calling, what does this mean for my kid? I said, I don't know. I really don't know. So we've got people in our recruiting office that are looking at branding and trying to stay ahead of the game. What does that mean? How can we do a better job? Regardless of what this rule says, we want to brand our entire team better. Coaches are concerned that if name, image, and likeness only affects 3 kids on your team, is that really fair? Because what about the backup right guard? We're responsible for him too. And if no one except a few on a few teams, and with 600 athletes at UNC, if only 3 or 5 athletes make money, I don't know that it's a great rule for athletic departments. It's a great rule for a great player who's probably going to be in the NFL and make his money anyway. That's why I thought Jim probably had a point. If he's a great player and if he's good enough to get money up front, maybe he can go get a lot more money in the NFL at the beginning. So we're working with Bubba. We're working within our own football program, but then Bubba's obviously got the vision for the entire department.
Good, Isaac?
Yeah, one quick follow-up though, Coach, to help maybe take care of some of those maybe lesser-known players. Might there be some ways to do some even package deals of, hey, we'll be able to get Sam's name out there, but follow up with a punter with him or something of that nature.
I know, and would people want to pay for that, Isaac? It's all unknown. I mean, that's the question. And is it fair to Title IX? Is it fair to the women's sports? Will they be as marketable in some areas with your guys who would pay for name, image, and likeness as a quarterback or a point guard? And so I think that's the thing we all need. We need some guidelines to help us with at least what somebody's thinking. We don't have any idea. Is it putting your name on a billboard for a car dealership? Is it giving you a percentage of jerseys that are sold with your name on the back? What does this mean? And I don't coaches are afraid to speak about it because they're afraid kids will think they don't want them to get money. That's not the case at all. We all love the cost of attendance because they get more money. But the question is, we're also people that have very distinct thoughts in what we do, and we like to be able to explain things to our players. We don't like unknowns, and right now this is a real unknown.
Go to JB. Where are you, JB? Go ahead, JB.
Got me? Hey, Coach, JB here. Thanks so much for taking out time for us. You kind of touched on both questions that I had, but I spoke to Coach McCauley this past weekend, and she was pretty adamant about Zoom calls becoming the norm, like forever, when it comes to recruiting moving forward, even when we come out of this pandemic. And I was just kind of curious to know your thoughts on that, as far as, one of the main reasons she said this should be the norm after we come out of this is because it may save money for the NCAA and save, traveling and all that or whatever. What are your thoughts about, recruiting virtually and through Zoom becoming the norm in all of college sports?
I think that it'll happen more, but because we're understanding that it works, I don't think we can take away the need for the coach to walk into the high school and see the environment and talk to the guidance counselor and talk to the principal and talk to the teachers. Because a lot of times they don't want to put that information in writing, and they'd rather tell you face to face. And so I don't see us taking away the ability to go see them in their homes and doing that. What I do see is even with us, if it's a Saturday in the spring and we have a staff meeting, I think we can very easily have it over Zoom and let the coaches be out of town or let them stay at home with their families and have an hour staff meeting on Zoom instead of making them come to the office or Sunday. I do think, like we mentioned earlier, I do think we'll be Zooming with prospects to see them and get to know them a little bit, and them get to know us before they come to campus. Because we may say, if you're wanting to come in and see me on a Sunday and I get on Zoom with you and your family and I don't like you or you don't like me, then we can cancel the Sunday meeting instead of having to go over and sit with them for an hour and a half or two and say this isn't going to work. So I think all of us will be looking at more creative ways to use the virtual tours, to use the interaction. I've even thought that we have our morning practice. If a guy has a lab at night, maybe he gets on a Zoom call with his coach from 4 to 5, and he doesn't have to run over if he needs to be studying or if he needs to eat, and he doesn't have time to do all that. So I do think there are a lot of things that will come out of this that are more creative than the old way we were doing things.
Okay, Coach, I have one follow-up in regards to the conferences. You also touched on this. Do you see the conferences all getting on the same page through this pandemic in order for college sports to return this fall? Is that going to be the biggest hurdle for all the conferences to get on the same page so we can have college sports in the fall?
You know, JB, I know it sounds like I'm just not going to give you an answer, but again, I think that's up to the commissioners. They've all got to decide what's best. And if Commissioner Swafford tells us we're going to play and nobody else is going to play, we're going to have a great league and we're going to have great competition in this league, and I'm going to enjoy it. So I got my plate full. I've been around Zoom more than I've been around Sally. So I'm Zooming about 6 or 8 times a day, but I haven't worried about that. I've got to worry about our players. I was so worried about the academics, and it looks like they're doing great in school, and I was concerned about that. It looks like the weights are okay. I don't think they're, again, like they would be on campus. Nutrition, we're trying to send out the legal supplements and all that to keep them with some kids' parents are they've lost their jobs, so there's no money, so they're having to take the scholarship money and help their parents, and it's really, really sad. So we're worried about all those things. So I would think that my focus is more finite on our team than it is the whole scope of college football right now, because I got to get our team ready if we play, and I'm planning on us playing.
All right. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thank you, JB.
Coach, we've got Art Chansey on. Art's got a question.
Hey, Art.
Hey, Mac, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, there seems to be a real disconnect here. Can you hear me, by the way? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, these decisions, like the NFL, if the NFL plays, they say that they're going to have to test every player how many times a week, but definitely Sunday morning or Saturday morning to make sure that it's all negatives out there. And they'll have a positive list, like an inactive list or an injury list of guys that can't play. But that's a lot of money. The NFL has that. I can't see colleges being able to do that wholesale. So what it comes down to is, there's one thing, social distancing. I mean, Kevin and Bubba were talking the other day about, yeah, they might be able to open up the campus. They have not many of these big lecture courses where there are 100 kids in a lecture course, and they'll be able to space the desks out in the various classrooms and keep everybody social distancing. I mean, you can have your guys back for meetings and stuff like that, but when you get to play football, when there's 22 guys crashing into each other on the field, I mean, that's not social distancing at all. So isn't it really a matter of the health people telling whoever, the governors and the conference commissioners, when you can play football and when you can't? The disconnect between letting kids back on campus and keeping them 6 feet apart is one thing, but when sports teams start playing each other and banging into each other, I mean, you have to have a complete clean bill of health that way to proceed. So that's what I really don't understand. You can have all your players back for meetings and so forth, but when you go on the practice field, you have to get the clean bill of health from whoever's making that shot. And it's above your level. It's above Bubba's. It's above Kevin's. It's probably above the governor's. It's probably from the CDC or somebody like that.
Yes, I agree completely, Art. And that's why I have stayed to my zone. I've stayed in my lane because I know I don't know. And I know I'm not capable of understanding. And I think that Kevin and Bubba are in constant contact with our medical people who are brilliant, and they will not let our kids play unless they know it's safe. And I've left that completely up to them. I want them to educate me. They have not called and asked my opinion on what I think of disease control. So thank goodness. But I'm leaving that up to them. Kevin and Bubba have done an amazing job of leadership during a very difficult time. I've been very impressed with them. They have not jumped the gun and said, we're not going to do this, or we're definitely doing this. They've taken their time and they're looking at it and they're asking questions. And I feel very, very comfortable with whatever Kevin and Bubba tell me, because I know they're going through every possible precaution to make sure that everybody's safe before we return to anything. And once again, I have not been told that we're returning June 15th. I have not been told players are coming back to campus. I was told probably a month or so ago that that would be the goal. And I have not been told that that's not what's happening. So, but I haven't been assured that that they're coming back to campus at any time yet.
All right, we'll go to.
Yeah. You're muted, Art.
Is Art still trying to talk?
Art's still talking.
Yeah.
Art, what do you got?
I'm off.
Thank you, Art.
I'm here? No, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Mac?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, so
Gold, Art.
so one other thing is that you know, if it's North Carolina's not a hot spot anymore and the state is safe, you had a question before about maybe regional play. For the love of the game, just to play football, you may end up playing like an NFL division where all its big schools in North Carolina play home and home. You play all the schools twice a year just to play football for this year. But doesn't it look to you like the possibility that the health officials who are going to decide this thing are going to say there are no sports, there's no football, there's nothing in the fall until this country is safe? And then can you see football moving the schedule to February, March, and April?
Again, Art, I'm staying in my lane. I know it sounds like I'm not answering, but I will not have any input in any of those decisions. And I'm planning on us playing September 5th at Central Florida. And until somebody tells me differently, that's what I'm planning on. Because if they move it back, you know, there's been so many different scenario possibilities and rumors. And don't play the out of conference games, come back to October, start over, play in the spring. All those things, I don't have any idea how any of that would possibly work. But if that all happens, I'm going to have time to adjust to it. I'm not going to have time if I don't do anything in preparing for Central Florida. So I'm preparing for Central Florida. Can't hear you. You've muted yourself again or somebody. There you go.
I'm muting him.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Why are you muting me, Jerry?
Because we got to keep it rolling.
All right, he mutes mute too. That's one good thing about the staff. If I got somebody's talking too much, I can mute them. So I can do that. But yes, Art.
That's all. I just think it's over your head. It's over everybody's head. It's in the hands of the health officials.
Absolutely.
And I don't see why. I can see why students could come back to go to school because there's social distancing in school. But I can't understand how any sport could be played if it wasn't a complete clean bill of health across the board because of the close contact that athletes have to have.
Right. And Art, this will sound rude. It's not. That's why you and I aren't making these decisions. I mean, that we need to get answers from the top medical people before we can do this. But that's what Kevin and Bubba are going to do.
All right, Ross. Give it a shot.
All right, I'm gonna make this a little bit lighter for you, Coach Brown. What's your relationship with Michael Jordan? You know, he's obviously in the news a lot. I know you've met him. I know you have some sort of relation with him based on the Jordan brand. But any stories or any things you can tell us about your interactions with Jordan and the Jordan brand?
I love Michael Jordan. I was obviously at Carolina when he had his run in the NBA, especially the early years. And I love Coach Smith, and Coach Smith was always talking about Michael Jordan. Coach Williams is always talking about Michael Jordan. And we would see him in town, and in Chapel Hill, everybody treated him just like a guy. You know, they're all, oh, there's Michael. Hey, Michael, how are you doing? It wasn't the superstar that he was internationally. And he came to our national championship game out in Pasadena. In fact, Sally had a picture taken with him out there that was really cool. When I've seen him at different places where he was playing golf, and I'd stop and visit with him. He's so nice and so cordial. And when he came to the Gonzaga game here a year ago, and I met with him, and number one, when you realize how big he really is, and then you watch the documentary of the Last Dance and see how he moves, I do think he's the best to ever play. And I know he's the most competitive player that there's ever been. So when I saw him, I was laughing with him and I said, so why did you give Jordan Brand shoes to Florida and Oklahoma and Michigan? Why didn't you just give them to us? He said, why don't you start winning some games at my school and then we'll talk. My school's won less games than those others, man. We need to start winning. And I said, I got it. So you can see how competitive he really is. But I've loved watching the documentary just because he competes so hard. So I actually talked at length this morning with our staff about that. That's what we're trying to capture. Throw the ability out. He has freakish ability. But a lot of guys have freakish ability that don't compete like that. And what made his fire burn like that? Why did he compete so hard? Why did he always look for that edge? And that's what we've got to convince our players to do and try to recruit the guy that's got the competitive spirit like Michael Jordan. And that's what all of us are looking for. And again, you can't always find that type athlete, but if you can find that spirit, find that competitive nature, then you're going to be okay.
What else you got, Ross? You can't hear?
You're off, Jeremy. Jeremy, you've muted yourself.
Alyssa, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, how have the players responded to all of this? And I know spring practice is a time for them to build chemistry and get used to each other, and this is different than any other year. Just how have they responded, and do you think that they're adjusting okay?
Alyssa, they've been incredible. They've been better than I have. I've had to watch it. I've been up and down, and I can't sit there and watch TV all day anymore and get depressed and just think about the changes in our grandchildren and our children, and we can't even see our grandkids. So I've had to pick it up, but they'll call me and say, "Are you okay? How are you doing, Coach?" And we have one workout. One of them was running in the hallway of his apartment complex because it was storming and he couldn't run outside. And I see kids that don't have access to weight rooms putting sand in a backpack or putting books in a backpack and out running or doing push-ups. And so they have been absolutely incredible. And again, I watched just looking, we're still getting our grades from the finals. Most of them are really, really good. And I've called some of these kids that don't have anything and they're making A's and B's. And I'm thinking they had to go somewhere to get internet access. It's really heartwarming. So as bad as this virus is, there's really going to be some lessons learned. There's going to be some incredible stories of accountability and courage and character coming out the other side. There'll be better ways to do things like we've talked about. We'll learn things. Our environment's coming out better. Our families are spending more time together. But to answer your question, and thank you for asking, I have been so amazed that these kids have been incredibly responsive and bright and I want to tear up when I get off. They're all thank you for the scholarship and thank you, Coach. My family's out of work and there's no way we couldn't even eat right now if we weren't on scholarship. And it's heartwarming for me. And I wish I could go be with them, and you can't. And that's why, as Art was talking, we want to make sure it's really safe when they come back.
Anything further, Alyssa?
Yeah, just as far as recruiting goes, do you think it's a snowball effect? I feel like every time I look, you guys are higher and higher in the recruiting trail. You're doing better and better. And then you have The Last Dance, and UNC's just in the forefront of everything right now. It feels like, how exciting is that for you? And do you kind of feel it is a snowball effect?
Well, recruiting's always a snowball effect because when you get really good players that like it, other players want to play with them. So they say, this is cool. You got to be the cool place to be. And right now, in a lot of recruits' eyes, we're the cool place to be. One of our opponents laughed at me the other day, and he said, so you got ESPN and Michael to throw all this Last Dance stuff out right now? And I said, oh, yeah. Yeah, I have that much pull that I could say, hey, Michael, throw that out during recruiting during the pandemic so we can get it done. But we've got new facilities. the facility upgrades, which happened right before the pandemic hit. So that helped us. We were able to pay for it and get it done. Kids haven't even seen it yet. They'll all be excited when they get back. We got a chance to be good. We've got just about all of our coaches coming back. It's a tremendous academic school. So I've always thought this place should be good. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we let people realize how cool it is.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Kiara. Kiara, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Great, Kiara. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. I just kind of wanted you to expand a little bit on the mental health aspect you were talking about. What are you guys doing on that front, and is that something that's going to be continued throughout the season?
Yes, Kiara. Bubba hired Dwight Hollier, who played for me when I was here before, and he played 10 years in the NFL. And he was in counseling with the NFL, and he is in our wellness department as such. And that's why we're bringing John Gordon in. We have a speaker once a month on Wednesday, and we call it Well Healed
I like that.
Wednesday. And John Gordon's coming in to speak because we felt like we needed an upbeat, positive speaker, and John's one of the best in the country. That's why we bring in the Wade Phillips and the Trey Bostons, and we're bringing in upbeat, positive, successful people so these young men can see themselves being in their place, like a Colt McCoy. And we're constantly talking to them about mental health. We're asking us to help us with each of them. So if they see one of their friends that's down, let us know. We got to pick him up. We're looking at why a young man would have bad grades. That's a sign there's something else wrong. And there's more alcohol issues and drug issues right now with the depression and with the pandemic. People are talking about it all over the place. So it'd be foolish to think that it's not surrounding some of the people that touch our programs. So we're just constantly all over it and asking them, are you okay? And our coaches are actually touching base with our players every day. Bubba used a term when we first started this that I thought really fit, and it's over-communicate. So we're trying to over-communicate with our guys just to make sure they're okay every day.
Anything further, Kiara?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right, it looks like we got one more hand raised. Jonathan Alexander, go ahead.
Hey, Mac.
Jonathan?
Hope all is well. You briefly mentioned this, kind of answered some of this question, but with you kind of being in that age group where health officials say, this group is susceptible to severe symptoms if you were to get it, like, have you thought much about how your interactions with people when recruiting or coaching will change? And you mentioned Coach Dewitt, who had cancer as well. I know you have family members who have the same. Have you thought about how recruiting and your interactions with people will change?
Jonathan, I have and I haven't, because you can think about it, but until we're out there and it's real, then we're not going to know for sure. I had a young teenager come up while I was walking the other day and said, "Hey, Coach, can I have a selfie?" And I thought, you really can't. So I said, "You can have a 6-foot selfie." I said, we're going to start having a social distancing selfie. So he actually stood across the road and he took the picture of he and I together. So yeah, there's going to be differences. And I've talked to the players about that. When our team gets back together, I'm a hugger. I'm going to want to hug all of them. I miss them. I can't. We just can't do that. And it's not just me at my age. It's all of us, because you don't want to infect someone else either. And I hope, Jonathan, it's a long time till even June 15th, if that's when we do go back to work. We're still a month away. So hopefully every day we're closer to better testing. Every day we're closer to a vaccine. And I'm just hoping that things get better before we all go back to work. And but I don't think, from what I'm hearing from top officials, I don't think this is going away. Well, it's going to be a different way of life for all of us, and it's just something we're going to have to look at. I thought Sally and I were talking the other night. Boy, just to go sit in a restaurant with friends and be able to have dinner. I mean, things have changed so much, and there's so many little things that we will never ever take for granted again, because we miss all of those things.